A rich family mocked a poor black girl's dress at a wedding, but 10 years later, she returns as their company's new owner. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go. Maya clutched the faded shopping bag containing her beige dress, purchased from the clearance rack 3 weeks ago when Miguel had asked her to accompany him to some wedding. Only yesterday had he mentioned it belonged to the Davenport family, one of Boston's wealthiest dynasties. Standing in her cramped apartment bathroom, she smoothed the polyester blend fabric over her hips and exhaled shakily. "It's just one night," she whispered to her reflection. "No one will even notice you." The dress wasn't awful. A simple A-line with a modest neckline and cap sleeves. The color did little for her olive complexion, but the price had been right. She'd spent her limited splurge money on professional makeup and having her dark hair styled into an elegant updo instead. Maya stepped back, assessing herself one final time. The dress would have to do. She couldn't afford another option, not with rent due next week. Her phone buzzed with a text from Miguel. "Waiting downstairs. Don't make us late." Gathering her small clutch purse in a light wrap, Maya took a deep breath and headed out. Miguel's borrowed BMW pulled up to the Grand Plaza Hotel's gleaming entrance 40 minutes later. Maya's stomach tightened at the sight of the immense marble columns and crystal chandeliers visible through the lobby's soaring windows. "Remember," Miguel said, adjusting his rented tuxedo, "Rebecca Davenport is marrying Ethan Carson, and they're both executives at Davenport Communications where I work. This is a massive networking opportunity for me." Maya nodded. "I won't embarrass you. Just try to blend in," he replied, already scanning the arriving guests for familiar faces. A red-coated valet opened Maya's door. She stepped out, immediately aware of the subtle, dismissive glance he gave her dress before turning his attention to guests in designer wear behind them. The marble lobby echoed with the click of expensive heels and polite, measured laughter. Maya followed Miguel through massive doors into the main ballroom, where her breath caught at the opulence surrounding them. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across tables adorned with exotic flowers and gleaming tableware. Ice sculptures depicting swans flanked a champagne fountain. "I need to say hello to some people," Miguel murmured, already drifting away. "Grab a drink. I'll find you later." Before Maya could protest, he disappeared into the crowd, leaving her stranded in a sea of wealth and privilege. She made her way to a server carrying flutes of champagne, taking one with a grateful smile. The glass felt cool against her palm as she used it as a shield, something to occupy her hands while she tried to appear comfortable. Around her, conversations flowed about summer homes, boarding schools, and investment portfolios. Maya sipped her champagne, the bubbles sharp on her tongue, and tried to make herself invisible while appearing at ease. An impossible balancing act. Across the room, radiant in a custom Vera Wang gown that likely cost more than Maya's annual salary, Rebecca Davenport Carson surveyed her perfect wedding reception. Her gaze swept across the room and paused, narrowing slightly when it landed on Maya. She whispered something to her new husband, Ethan, a classically handsome man with confident posture, who glanced over with raised eyebrows. William Davenport, Rebecca's father and CEO of Davenport Communications, followed their gaze. The trio observed Maya with expressions of amused curiosity, as though spotting an unexpected insect at their picnic. Maya felt their scrutiny like a physical touch. She took another sip of champagne, willing herself to project confidence she didn't feel. Perhaps if she found the restroom, she could regroup. She turned, seeking an exit, when Rebecca's crystalline voice cut through the surrounding conversations. "Excuse me, dear, but I think you confused the event. The cleaning staff uses the service entrance." The words sliced through the ambient chatter, creating a pocket of silence around them. Maya froze, her champagne flute halfway to her lips, as nearby guests turned to watch. Rebecca glided closer, her perfect smile never wavering. That dress, it's almost the exact color of our tablecloths. Was that intentional? Heat rushed to Maya's face as several onlookers tittered. She lowered her glass, searching for words that wouldn't come. William Davenport stepped forward, raising his crystal flute in Maya's direction. To the young lady who mistook our reception for a job interview, perhaps we can find something for you in the supply closet. More laughter rippled through the crowd. Maya's pulse pounded in her ears as she struggled to maintain her composure. Ethan pulled his phone from his pocket with a smirk. This deserves documentation, he announced. Smile for the before picture of our next charity project. The surrounding guests laughed more openly now, some not even bothering to hide their amusement behind manicured hands. Maya's entire body burned with humiliation, but somewhere beneath the shame, a spark of defiance ignited. She'd grown up being underestimated and overlooked. This was familiar territory, just with more expensive window dressing. Setting her shoulders back, Maya stepped directly toward the trio. The laughter faltered as she approached with unexpected confidence. "Mr. Davenport," she said, her voice barely trembling. "I may not know the difference between Chanel and champagne, but I can certainly tell the difference between class and vulgarity. Thank you for the demonstration." She placed her flute carefully on a nearby table. "And Rebecca, congratulations on your wedding. I hope you chose your husband with more care than your guests." A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers. Rebecca's perfect smile froze, her eyes widening in shock that someone like Maya would dare respond. Maya turned to leave with what remained of her dignity, her heart hammering against her ribs. As she pivoted, her shoulder collided with a passing server. The tray he carried tipped precariously, sending small bowls of shrimp sauce cascading down the front of Maya's beige dress. Time seemed to slow as cold, pink sauce splattered across her bodice and skirt. The server stammered apologies, but they were drowned out by the explosion of laughter from all sides. Maya stood paralyzed, sauce dripping from her ruined dress onto the marble floor. Rebecca's tinkling laugh rose above the others. "Now you'll definitely need that service entrance." Fighting back tears that threatened to spill, Maya hurried toward the nearest exit, laughter pursuing her like hounds after prey. She pushed through double doors into a mercifully empty corridor and followed signs to the restroom. In the luxurious bathroom with its marble countertops and fresh orchids, Maya frantically dabbed at her dress with dampened paper towels. The pink sauce had already set into the fabric, creating blotches that would never come out. Her careful makeup was intact, but her pride was in tatters. Staring at her reflection in the gold-framed mirror, Maya saw the familiar face of a girl who had always been told she didn't belong. But behind the humiliation in her eyes, something else flickered. Determination, perhaps, or the first embers of rage. "One day," she whispered to her reflection, "you will see me. Really see me, and I'll be wearing this exact dress when you do." The absurdity of the promise, that she would ever wear this ruined dress again, that she would ever willingly face these people again, almost made her laugh through her tears. Yet something about speaking the words aloud solidified them into a vow. Maya splashed cold water on her wrists, a trick her mother had taught her to calm down, and reapplied her lipstick. The dress was beyond saving, but she wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her completely undone. She texted Miguel, "Had an accident. Going home. Find another ride." She didn't wait for his response. Walking through the hotel lobby with pink stains down her front, Maya held her head high despite the curious and pitying glances from hotel staff and guests. Outside, the night air cooled her burning cheeks as she waited for the valet to call a taxi. As she stood on the sidewalk, a glossy pamphlet skittered across the pavement, caught in the evening breeze. Maya caught it reflexively. The header read, "MBA Scholarship Program for Emerging Business Leaders." A business card was paperclipped to it, James Chen, venture capital investor. Maya studied the card, noting that Mr. Chen had been listed among the wedding guests on the ornate board in the hotel lobby. Perhaps he'd dropped this on his way in. She considered returning it, but the thought of re-entering that ballroom made her physically ill. Instead, she slipped both the pamphlet and the card into her stained purse just as her taxi arrived. As the car pulled away from the gleaming hotel, Maya gazed back at its illuminated windows, a strange calmness settling over her. "One day," she murmured, "they'll remember this beige dress and the woman who wore it." The pamphlet about the MBA scholarship burned in Maya's hands like a talisman as the taxi pulled away from the Grand Plaza Hotel. She tucked it carefully into her purse despite the stains, a seed of an idea taking root in her mind. The humiliation of tonight would become fuel for tomorrow. 10 years later, Maya Wilson strode purposefully through the gleaming corridors of Montgomery Capital, her Louboutins clicking against marble floors that rivaled those of the Grand Plaza. Her tailored charcoal suit projected the confidence of someone who belonged in these rarefied financial heights. As director of senior investments, she had earned her place through intelligence, determination, and the burning memory of a night when Boston's elite had laughed at her stained beige dress. "Maya, wait up!" James Chen called from behind, slightly out of breath as he hurried to catch her. His hair had silvered at the temples since that first meeting a decade ago, but his eyes still held the same shrewd kindness that had recognized potential in a humiliated young woman. She slowed her pace, allowing her mentor to fall into step beside her. "The projections for the Davenport acquisition are ready. The board meeting starts in 20 minutes. James's expression tightened. "Maya, you can't simply propose a hostile takeover of Davenport Communications without consulting the full board first. This is personal, isn't it?" "It's strictly business, James," Maya replied, her voice cool and professional. "They're hemorrhaging money since William handed operations to his son-in-law. Their stock has plummeted 63% in 3 years. The company is an undervalued asset waiting for someone with vision to restructure it. What do you really want with this? Revenge?" James pressed, concern evident in his eyes. Maya opened her mouth to respond when her assistant hurried toward them, tablet in hand. "Ms. Wilson, your emergency meeting with the investors starts in 5 minutes, and I just received word that Davenport's board has unanimously rejected your initial offer." "They would," Maya murmured, a slight smile playing at her lips. "Tell them I'll be right there." Turning to James, she straightened her already immaculate lapel. "It's not revenge, James. It's opportunity, the sweetest kind." The conference room buzzed with tension as Maya entered. 8 investors representing billions in capital watched her with expressions ranging from skepticism to curiosity. She took her position at the head of the table with practiced ease, remembering a time when such rooms had seemed as inaccessible as another planet. "Ladies and gentlemen," Maya began, activating the presentation display with a touch, "I understand there are concerns about our move on Davenport Communications." "Concerns is putting it mildly," interrupted Harold Winters, the oldest investor present. "The rumor mill says this is a vendetta. You have history with the Davenports." Maya met his gaze unflinchingly. "Mr. Winters, I have history with countless companies. That's what happens when you've spent a decade in this industry." She advanced to the first slide showing Davenport's declining financials. "I'm not suggesting we acquire Davenport out of spite. I'm suggesting we acquire it because we can have it for pennies on the dollar before anyone else realizes it still has value." For the next 20 minutes, Maya methodically outlined her analysis. Davenport's valuable media properties, their outdated management structure, the potential synergies with Montgomery's existing portfolio, and the projected return on investment. By the time she concluded, even the most skeptical faces had softened. The company that once dominated print and successfully transitioned to digital is now bleeding subscribers and advertisers due to mismanagement. Maya finished. We can reverse that trend within 18 months and see a 30% return on investment within 3 years. Silence filled the room as her words settled. Finally, Edgar Phillips, the board president, gave a slight nod. You have the green light, Wilson. But if this turns out to be some personal vendetta, then you'll have my resignation, Maya finished smoothly. But that won't be necessary. Later that evening, Maya sat in her penthouse apartment, the lights of Boston spread below her like a reflection of the stars. The space was elegant, but not ostentatious. Clean lines, carefully chosen art, and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with volumes on finance, psychology, and history. Success had brought comfort, but Maya had never been interested in flaunting wealth. She swirled her glass of Cabernet, reviewing the day's victories, when her phone rang with an unknown number. Normally, she would let it go to voicemail, but something, intuition perhaps, made her answer. Maya Wilson speaking. Ms. Wilson? The male voice on the other end was aged but commanding. William Davenport here. I don't believe we've been formally introduced, but I've heard rumors about your proposal regarding my company. Maya's pulse quickened, but her voice remained steady. Mr. Davenport, this is unexpected. I imagine it is, he replied with a dry chuckle. I've followed your career with interest, from scholarship student to director at Montgomery. Quite impressive. Thank you, Maya said cautiously, wondering how much he remembered of their actual first meeting. Perhaps we could discuss your offer over dinner tomorrow? Sometimes these matters are better handled face-to-face. I'd be happy to meet, Maya replied, her mind racing ahead to the implications. Does 8 o'clock at Maison Laurent work for you? Perfect. Until tomorrow, Ms. Wilson. As the call ended, Maya placed her wineglass on the coffee table and walked to her bedroom closet. In the back, preserved in a garment bag, hung a beige dress with faint pink stains, a reminder of promises made and kept. She ran her fingers over the fabric, remembering the journey that had begun that humiliating night. The day after the wedding disaster, with sauce-stained clothes in the trash and tears dried on her cheeks, Maya had called the number on James Chen's business card. To her surprise, he had remembered her from the reception and agreed to meet for coffee. That meeting had changed the trajectory of her life. I saw how you handled yourself when they tried to humiliate you, James had told her over steaming mugs in a downtown cafe. That kind of dignity under fire can't be taught. Have you considered business school? Maya had laughed, bitterly. On my salary, I can barely make rent. James had slid the MBA scholarship pamphlet, the same one she'd picked up outside the hotel, across the table. The application deadline is next week. I sit on the selection committee. She had spent every spare minute that week preparing her application, staying up until dawn, perfecting her personal statement. 6 weeks later, Maya held the acceptance letter in trembling hands, hardly believing the full scholarship offer to one of Boston's top business programs. The next years blurred together in her memory. Sleepless nights, highlighting textbooks, early mornings reviewing case studies, weekends sacrificed to internships. While her classmates networked at cocktail parties, Maya worked part-time to cover living expenses, applying every theory she learned to her own unofficial case study, Davenport Communications. Her graduation day stood out clearly, standing in her cap and gown, scanning the audience to find James applauding proudly as she received her MBA with highest honors. No family members had attended. Maya's mother had passed away during her first year of business school, and she'd never known her father. But in James, she'd found something close to family. Her first corporate interview had tested everything she'd learned about projecting confidence. Why should we hire you over candidates from Wharton or Harvard? The interviewer had asked. Because I'm hungry, Maya had replied simply. Those candidates want success. I need it. She'd started as an analyst, working twice as hard as her colleagues, staying latest, arriving earliest. When competitors went home exhausted, Maya reviewed financial news, paying special attention to any mention of Davenport Communications. She noted when William began transitioning control to Ethan Carson, saved articles about declining ad revenues, and tracked their stock price's steady descent. Her first promotion came 18 months later, a junior portfolio manager position that doubled her salary. Maya celebrated with a quiet dinner alone, setting aside a portion of her new income for investments. 3 years into her career, Maya delivered an analysis of media conglomerate vulnerabilities that caught the attention of Montgomery's executive team. By 30, she had a corner office and a team reporting to her. At 32, she became the youngest director in the firm's history, with James now serving as her peer rather than her superior. Through it all, she maintained a special file on her computer, labeled simply Project D, a comprehensive analysis of Davenport Communications' decline under Ethan Carson's leadership. What had begun as a fantasy of revenge had evolved into a legitimate business opportunity. The company was now severely undervalued, its substantial assets mismanaged to the point of crisis. 2 nights ago, Maya had finally presented her acquisition plan informally to James over dinner. "You've been planning this for years," he'd realized, studying her meticulously prepared documents. "I've been preparing for it," she'd corrected. "There's a difference." Now, standing in her bedroom with the phone call from William Davenport still echoing in her ears, Maya felt a decade of work crystallizing into this moment. Tomorrow's dinner would begin the endgame she'd been working toward since stumbling out of the Grand Plaza Hotel, with shrimp sauce on her dress and fire in her heart. Moving to her desk, Maya opened her laptop to review her notes on William Davenport one final time. Her phone chimed with a news alert. Montgomery Capital's interest in Davenport Communications had leaked to the financial press. The stock had jumped 7% in after-hours trading. Maya smiled as she closed the file. Everything was proceeding exactly as she had planned for 10 years. As she prepared for bed, her phone lit up again. This time with a text message from her assistant confirming tomorrow's dinner reservation with William Davenport. As she switched off her bedside lamp, Maya's thoughts drifted to the coming confrontation. Would William recognize her? Would he remember his cruel toast at his daughter's wedding? It hardly mattered now. The terrified, humiliated girl in the beige dress had transformed herself into someone they couldn't ignore or ridicule. Someone with the power to decide their fate. When her phone rang again late that night, Maya blinked awake to see the caller ID display William Davenport, a name she never thought she'd see on her screen again. Maya's finger hovered over the answer button as William Davenport's name illuminated her phone screen. Taking a deep breath to steady herself, she accepted the call with practiced composure. "Mr. Davenport, it's late. I trust this is important," she said, her voice betraying none of the turbulence beneath. "My apologies for the hour, Ms. Wilson," William replied, his tone surprisingly deferential. "I wanted to confirm our dinner tomorrow personally. 8 o'clock at Maison Laurent, as you suggested." Maya switched on her bedside lamp, fully alert now. "I appreciate the confirmation. Is there something else?" A pause stretched between them. "I prefer to discuss business face-to-face, Ms. Wilson, but I will say this. Your interest in my company has certainly captured my attention. I look forward to understanding your motivations more clearly." "As do I yours, Mr. Davenport," Maya replied smoothly. "Until tomorrow, then." After ending the call, sleep eluded her. Maya spent the remaining hours of darkness reviewing Davenport Communications' financial reports, searching for any last-minute adjustments to her strategy. The following evening, Maya stood before her closet, deliberating on her armor for the confrontation ahead. She selected a tailored navy suit, powerful without ostentation. The fabric expensive enough to communicate success, but not showy enough to suggest insecurity. Her jewelry was minimal, pearl earrings and the watch James had given her when she became director. This meeting would be about substance, not spectacle. Maison Laurent occupied the top floor of a renovated historical building in Boston's financial district. The restaurant's understated elegance attracted the city's power brokers, who valued its private alcoves and discreet staff. Maya arrived 15 minutes early, requesting a corner table that offered both privacy and a view of the entrance. William Davenport arrived precisely at 8, his tall frame slightly stooped now with age. His hair had gone completely silver, but his bearing still communicated authority. The maitre d' led him directly to Maya's table. "Ms. Wilson," he said, extending his hand. "A pleasure to finally meet you properly." Maya rose, accepting his handshake with a firm grip. "Mr. Davenport, thank you for suggesting this meeting." They sat, and a waiter immediately appeared to take their drink orders. Maya requested sparkling water, noting with interest that William ordered the same rather than his trademark scotch. "No alcohol tonight?" she inquired lightly. William's mouth twitched in what might have been a smile. "Doctor's orders, I'm afraid. One of the indignities of aging." After their drinks arrived and appetizers were ordered, William leaned back in his chair, studying Maya with undisguised curiosity. "So tell me, Ms. Wilson, why my company?" Maya met his gaze directly. "Why not? It's an undervalued asset with extraordinary potential." "There are many undervalued assets in today's market," William countered. "Yet you've focused your considerable talents specifically on Davenport Communications." Maya took a measured sip of her water. "Your company pioneered digital transformation in traditional media when others were still clinging to print. The foundation is solid. The present management, however—" She let the implication hang between them. William's eyes narrowed slightly. "You mean my son-in-law?" "I mean the numbers, Mr. Davenport. 6 consecutive quarters of declining revenue, a content strategy that fails to engage younger demographics, excessive executive compensation despite poor performance." Maya paused. "These aren't personal observations. They're market realities." William studied her with renewed interest. "You remind me of someone. Determined, relentless." Before Maya could respond, a commotion at the restaurant entrance drew their attention. Rebecca Davenport Carson swept in, her husband Ethan following closely behind. They scanned the dining room until Rebecca's gaze locked onto their table. Her perfect features registered shock, then quickly rearranged into a socialite's practiced smile. "Dad, we were so worried when you canceled our dinner," Rebecca called out, already making her way toward them. "Your assistant mentioned you had an important meeting, but she didn't say with whom." William's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Rebecca, Ethan, this is unexpected." Rebecca reached their table, elegant in a designer dress that probably cost more than Maya's monthly mortgage payment. Her eyes flickered over Maya with practiced dismissal before suddenly widening in recognition. "You," she gasped, "the girl in the beige dress." Maya set down her water glass with deliberate calm. "Rebecca Davenport Carson, still recognizing cheap dresses, I see." A tense silence descended on the table. Ethan moved protectively closer to his wife, while William looked between the women with growing comprehension. "What is this opportunist doing here, Dad?" Rebecca hissed, her composure cracking. William leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "Attempting to buy our company, apparently." "That's impossible. We would never allow it," Ethan interjected, his voice rising enough that nearby diners glanced their way. William gestured to the empty chairs. "Since you're here, you might as well join us. Ms. Wilson was just explaining why she believes Davenport Communications would benefit from new management." Reluctantly, Rebecca and Ethan took seats, the latter signaling aggressively for a waiter. "Scotch! Double!" he snapped. "Make that 2, Rebecca added, her eyes never leaving Maya. Maya maintained her composure, though her heart raced with unexpected adrenaline. This confrontation had come sooner than she'd anticipated, but perhaps it was better this way, like ripping off a bandage in one swift motion. As I was saying to your father, Maya continued coolly, Davenport Communications has extraordinary untapped potential. Its current leadership, however, seems more focused on leveraging the company's prestige than building its future. Ethan slammed his hand on the table, rattling the silverware. That's absurd. We've implemented a comprehensive digital strategy that has resulted in a 63% stock decline over 3 years, Maya finished for him. Those aren't my figures, Mr. Carson. They're from your own quarterly reports. Rebecca's eyes darted between her husband and father. This is ridiculous. We can't seriously be entertaining an acquisition offer from someone like her. The waiter arrived with their drinks, pouring Rebecca's scotch with practiced efficiency. As Ethan reached for his glass, his elbow caught the edge of Rebecca's, sending amber liquid cascading across the pristine tablecloth and onto her cream-colored designer dress. "Ethan!" Rebecca shrieked, jumping up as the expensive fabric absorbed the stain. "This is a Valentino!" Maya couldn't suppress a small smile as she observed Rebecca's panic. Interesting how red wine on your $10,000 dress seems more catastrophic than shrimp sauce on a clearance rack outfit, isn't it? Rebecca's head snapped up, her eyes narrowing to dangerous slits. How dare you? You think because you've put on expensive clothes and learned some financial jargon that you belong at this table with us? Rebecca, William warned, his tone sharp. That's enough. Maya dabbed her napkin at a droplet of water on the tablecloth, entirely composed. Actually, what I think is that your husband has mismanaged your family's legacy to the brink of collapse, and I'm offering a lifeboat before the ship sinks entirely. William turned to Maya with renewed interest. Perhaps we should discuss specific terms. What exactly are you proposing? Dad, Rebecca protested. You can't seriously be considering this. The tension at the table escalated as waiters arrived with their appetizers, creating an absurd tableau of culinary elegance amid palpable hostility. Maya waited until they departed before addressing William again. Montgomery Capital is prepared to offer $28 per share, a 30% premium over current market value, with provisions for maintaining the Davenport name and legacy properties. Ethan scoffed loudly. 30% over a temporarily depressed valuation? That's robbery, not rescue. William's expression remained inscrutable. And what role do you envision for current leadership? A transition period would be necessary, Maya replied diplomatically. Beyond that, we envision significant restructuring. The subtext was clear. Ethan would be out. Rebecca's face flushed with anger as she realized the implications. This is absurd, she declared, standing abruptly. I won't sit here while this nobody tries to steal our company as some twisted revenge fantasy. Maya remained seated, her expression neutral. Business isn't about revenge, Rebecca. It's about value, something your husband seems to have forgotten. Ethan stood alongside his wife, his face contorted with barely contained rage. This meeting is over. Our company is not for sale, especially not to you. William stayed seated, watching his daughter and son-in-law with an unreadable expression. I believe I'll finish my dinner with Ms. Wilson. We have more to discuss. Rebecca stared at her father in disbelief. Dad, you can't be serious. Deadly serious, William replied calmly. I'll see you both at tomorrow's board meeting. After a moment of tense silence, Rebecca grabbed her purse and stormed out, Ethan following close behind, leaving Maya and William alone at the table. I apologize for my daughter, William said quietly. She's always been protective of what she considers hers. Maya raised an eyebrow. Including her husband's right to drive your company into the ground? William didn't immediately respond, instead taking a careful bite of his appetizer. Tell me honestly, Ms. Wilson, is this personal for you? Would it matter if it were? Maya countered. Their dinner continued with careful conversation about specifics of the potential acquisition. By the time they parted with a handshake at the restaurant entrance, Maya felt cautiously optimistic about William's receptiveness to her offer. As she waited for the valet to bring her car, Maya sensed a presence behind her. Turning, she found Ethan Carson standing too close, his breath heavy with scotch. "You won't destroy my family's legacy," he hissed, his earlier polish replaced by naked aggression. "Your legacy?" Maya replied calmly. "You destroyed the company in record time, Ethan. Perhaps you should have spent less time laughing at people like me and more time learning how to run a business." The valet pulled up with her car, and Maya stepped away from Ethan's looming figure. "I'll see you at the board meeting tomorrow. Sleep well." The following morning, Maya arrived early at her office to prepare for what promised to be a pivotal day. James was waiting for her, his expression grave. "We have a problem," he said without preamble. "Davenport just announced an exclusive negotiation agreement with a Chinese investment group. They've signed preliminary papers to sell at $35 per share." Maya felt the floor tilt beneath her. "That's impossible. I was with William Davenport last night. He was receptive to our offer." James handed her a financial news tablet displaying the headline, "Davenport Communications enters exclusive talks with Shanghai Media Group." "It's over, Maya," James sighed. "They'd rather sell to foreigners than sell to you." Maya sank into her chair, mind racing through implications and possibilities. Everything she'd worked for over the past decade seemed to be disintegrating before her eyes. Just as despair threatened to overwhelm her, her assistant knocked and entered with a manila envelope. This was just delivered by courier, marked urgent and confidential. Maya opened the unmarked envelope with trembling fingers. Inside, she found internal Davenport documents showing unmistakable evidence that Ethan had falsified financial projections to facilitate the sale. According to these papers, the Chinese investment group was actually a shell company that he had helped create to siphon off assets. Maya stared at the documents in disbelief, her fingers tracing the incriminating numbers as if touch might verify what her eyes were seeing. These weren't merely suggestive inconsistencies. They were smoking guns, balance sheets with impossible figures, projections that contradicted official filings. Most damning of all, emails between Ethan and representatives of a Hong Kong shell company outlining how assets would be stripped and redistributed once the acquisition was complete. "Who sent these?" she whispered, though her assistant had already left the room. James leaned over her shoulder, his brow furrowing as he examined a particularly damning spreadsheet. "Someone inside Davenport must be as concerned about Carson's leadership as we are." He pointed to a signature line on one of the documents. "This approval came from Ethan's office, but the authorization codes don't match standard Davenport protocols." Maya arranged the papers methodically across her desk, organizing them into categories: financial manipulation, corporate structure of the shell company, and communications detailing the scheme. The picture emerging was clear and disturbing. Ethan Carson wasn't just selling the company. He was gutting it. "We need to move quickly," she said, reaching for her phone. "I'm calling our legal team." Within the hour, her office had transformed into a war room. Montgomery Capital's top lawyers scrutinized the documents, while financial analysts traced the connections between Ethan's shell companies. Maya stood at the whiteboard, mapping the relationships between key players in the scheme. "The Chinese group isn't an investment firm at all," explained Sonia Park, head of Maya's analytics team. "It's a series of nested holding companies that all lead back to a Macau entity called Eastern Horizon Investments." "And who owns Eastern Horizon?" Maya asked, marker poised over the board. Sonia grimaced. "That's where it gets murky, but we found evidence that Carson has signatory authority on at least one of the subsidiary accounts." James whistled low. "He's not just selling the company, he's effectively selling it to himself, while defrauding the other shareholders," Maya added, circling Ethan's name on the board with a decisive red stroke, including his father-in-law. By mid-afternoon, they had assembled enough evidence to approach the Securities and Exchange Commission. Maya personally compiled the report, carefully documenting each irregularity and connecting it to specific violations of securities law. With everything prepared, she called William Davenport's private number, but it went straight to voicemail. "Mr. Davenport, this is Maya Wilson. I've uncovered information about your pending sale that requires immediate attention. Please call me as soon as possible." James watched her set down the phone. "You think he's involved?" Maya shook her head. "No, I think he's being played. Ethan's using William's declining health and Rebecca's loyalty to push this through, while keeping them both in the dark about the true nature of the deal." At 4 o'clock, Maya and her legal team arrived at the SEC's Boston office with their evidence. The receiving agent, a weary-looking woman named Carolyn Bright, listened impassively as Maya outlined the scheme. "These are serious allegations, Ms. Wilson," she said, carefully reviewing the summary documents, "especially considering the prominence of Davenport Communications." "The evidence speaks for itself," Maya replied. "We're not simply alleging mismanagement. We're showing clear intent to defraud shareholders through a fabricated international acquisition." Agent Bright nodded slowly. "I'll need to confer with our enforcement division. This will require careful handling given the international components." "Time is critical," Maya stressed. "The sale is pending final approval at tomorrow's board meeting." "I understand the urgency. We'll expedite the review process." Maya left the SEC offices cautiously optimistic. The evidence was solid, and the violations clear. If the SEC moved quickly enough, they could freeze the transaction before irreparable damage was done. Back at Montgomery Capital, her team continued working well into the evening, strengthening their case and preparing alternative strategies. Around 9 o'clock, Maya's phone rang with an unknown number. "Ms. Wilson, this is Agent Bright from the SEC." Maya straightened in her chair. "Yes, Agent Bright. Do you have an update?" The pause on the line stretched uncomfortably before Bright continued. "I wanted to inform you personally that after careful review, the Commission has determined there isn't sufficient evidence to warrant immediate intervention in the Davenport transaction." "That's impossible," Maya said, her voice rising. "The documentation clearly shows—" "Ms. Wilson," Bright interrupted, her tone suddenly more formal, "while we appreciate your diligence, the Commission has determined that the allegations don't meet our threshold for emergency action. You're welcome to submit additional evidence if it becomes available." The call ended before Maya could press further. She sat frozen, staring at her phone in disbelief. "They're shutting it down," she told James when she found her voice again. "The SEC is refusing to act." James's expression darkened. "Someone got to them. This has Carson's fingerprints all over it." "But how?" The evidence was irrefutable. Influence doesn't always require refutation. Sometimes it just requires a phone call from the right person. James sighed heavily. Ethan may be driving Davenport into the ground, but he's made powerful friends along the way. Maya paced her office, mind racing through potential courses of action. We could take this to the financial press. Without SEC backing, we'd be risking a libel suit. The FBI, then. This crosses into wire fraud, which would take months to investigate long after the sale is complete. Maya stopped pacing, her hands gripping the back of her chair as reality settled in. They've outmaneuvered us. Later that night, after most of her team had reluctantly gone home, Maya remained in her office, surrounded by evidence that now seemed useless. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight, but sleep was the furthest thing from her mind. 10 years of planning, of building herself from nothing, all to reach this moment, only to be blocked by corruption she couldn't have anticipated. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. James stood in the doorway, looking equally exhausted. "They bought someone in the commission," he said, dropping into the chair across from her desk. "We're out of options." Maya rubbed her temples, fighting the headache that had been building for hours. "There has to be something we're missing, some angle we haven't considered." James shook his head. "Maybe it's time to let this go, Maya. The Montgomery board is already nervous about the whole endeavor. If they catch wind of SEC reluctance, they'll pull support entirely." "I can't just walk away," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not when I'm this close." "Close to what, though? Revenge or a sound business acquisition?" James leaned forward, his expression softening. "I've supported you through this entire journey, but I have to ask, what's driving you now? Is it still about proving your worth? Or has this become something darker?" Before Maya could respond, her office phone rang, unusual for this hour. She answered cautiously. "Ms. Wilson? This is security downstairs. There's a William Davenport here to see you." Maya exchanged a shocked glance with James. "Send him up immediately." Minutes later, William Davenport entered her office without waiting for an invitation. He looked haggard, his normally immaculate appearance disheveled as if he'd dressed in haste. "You were right about Ethan," he said without preamble, lowering himself heavily into a chair. "He's sinking the company I built over 40 years. Maya studied him carefully, looking for any sign of deception. "Why come to me now, after you've already agreed to sell to his shell company?" William's expression registered surprise. "You know about that too?" "I know everything, Mr. Davenport. The shell companies in Hong Kong, the falsified financials, the plan to strip assets post-acquisition. I took it all to the SEC today, but they mysteriously declined to investigate." William closed his eyes briefly, looking every one of his 70-plus years. "Carson has connections in Washington. Old fraternity brothers, golf partners. I should have anticipated he'd use them." "That doesn't explain why you're here," Maya pressed. "Why come to me?" William met her gaze directly for the first time. "Because you're the only person sufficiently motivated to stop him." The statement hung in the air between them, loaded with unspoken acknowledgement of their history. "And why should I help you?" Maya asked, her voice steady despite the emotions churning beneath. "Your company rejected my offer. Your family has made it abundantly clear they want nothing to do with me." "Not my family," William corrected. "My son-in-law, and to a lesser extent my daughter, who's blinded by loyalty to him." He leaned forward, desperation edging into his voice. "I'm not asking you to help me, Ms. Wilson. I'm asking you to help save what I built from being dismantled for parts." James, who had remained silent during this exchange, finally spoke. "What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Davenport?" "A partnership," William replied without hesitation. "I still control 27% of voting shares. Combined with what Montgomery has already quietly acquired, we could block the sale at tomorrow's board meeting." Maya considered this, mind already calculating new possibilities. "And afterward?" "Afterward, we restructure. You bring in your management team. We salvage what Carson hasn't already destroyed." William paused. "And you get what you wanted. Control of Davenport Communications, albeit through a different route than you planned." With William's unexpected help, Maya spent the rest of the night uncovering Ethan's vulnerabilities. By dawn, they had identified his greatest weakness, a secret bank account in the Cayman Islands, where he had been funneling diverted company funds. This account, invisible on any official documentation, contained nearly $30 million, money that rightfully belonged to Davenport shareholders. "This is the leverage we need," Maya told William as they reviewed the evidence. "With this, we can stop the sale regardless of what the SEC does." Later that day, Maya attended a charity gala where she knew both Ethan and Rebecca would be present. Dressed in an elegant black gown that projected confidence and authority, She strategically positioned herself to intercept Ethan near the bar. "Enjoying what might be your last public appearance as a Davenport executive?" she asked quietly. Ethan's false smile faltered. "What are you talking about?" "Cayman National Bank, account number 4285739, Maya," replied, watching recognition flicker in his eyes. 30 million reasons why the deal won't go through tomorrow." Before Ethan could respond, Rebecca appeared beside him, instantly hostile at Maya's presence. "What is she doing here?" she demanded. "Your husband was just learning how quickly fortunes can change," Maya replied smoothly. "Something I learned 10 years ago at your wedding." As Maya turned to walk away, Rebecca lunged forward, giving her a hard shove. Maya, unprepared for the physical attack, lost her balance at the top of a decorative staircase and tumbled down several steps before a waiter managed to break her fall. Pain shot through Maya's ankle as concerned guests gathered around. Through the haze of shock and embarrassment, she saw Ethan pulling a frantic Rebecca away from the scene, William pushing through the crowd with genuine alarm on his face, and somewhere in the background, camera phones capturing it all. In the hospital later that night, X-rays confirmed a sprained ankle and minor contusions, painful, but not serious. As Maya lay in the sterile room, James arrived with devastating news. "The board called an emergency session after your incident went viral," he explained grimly. "They voted to withdraw from the Davenport acquisition entirely. They're concerned about the publicity, the SEC's reluctance, all of it." Maya stared at the ceiling, feeling a decade of work slipping through her fingers. "My own company betrayed me. I fought for you, Maya. But they see this as a liability now, not an opportunity." Closing her eyes against the harsh hospital lights, Maya whispered, "I lost. 10 years of work for nothing." James squeezed her hand gently. "Maybe it's time to move on, Maya." Just as despair threatened to overwhelm her, a knock at the door interrupted them. A serious-looking man in a crisp suit entered, displaying a Federal Treasury Department badge. "Ms. Wilson, I'm Special Agent Donovan with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. The evidence you gathered has triggered a separate tax investigation into Ethan Carson. I believe we have mutual interest to discuss." Special Agent Donovan's unexpected arrival felt like a lifeline thrown to a drowning woman. Maya sat up straighter in her hospital bed, wincing slightly at the pain in her ribs. "The Treasury Department is investigating Ethan Carson?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Donovan nodded, pulling a chair closer to her bedside. "We've had concerns about certain patterns for months, but your evidence provided the missing pieces. The SEC might be looking the other way, but tax evasion is our jurisdiction." James leaned forward. "How did you even know about Maya's evidence?" "The financial world is smaller than you might think, Mr. Chen," Donovan replied with a thin smile. "And not everyone at the SEC agrees with the official position of inaction." Hope flickered in Maya's chest, but she tempered it with caution. "What exactly are you proposing, Agent Donovan?" "A collaboration, Miss Wilson. You have insights we need, and we have authority you lack." He glanced at his watch. "But we need to move quickly. The Davenport board votes tomorrow at noon." After Agent Donovan left with copies of Maya's most crucial evidence, James helped her gather her belongings to check out of the hospital. The doctor had recommended rest, but Maya had no intention of lying idle while the most important battle of her professional life reached its climax. "You should go home and recover," James advised as he supported her to his waiting car. "Home is the last place I need to be right now," Maya replied, grimacing as she settled into the passenger seat. "Take me to my office." As James drove through Boston's nighttime streets, Maya's phone rang. The screen displayed William Davenport's number. "William," she answered. "I assume you've heard about my accident." "The entire financial community has heard," he replied gravely. "Rebecca is beside herself Not with remorse, I should clarify, but with fear of legal consequences. Ethan has her convinced you'll press charges. That's the least of their concerns right now, Maya said. The Treasury Department has opened an investigation into Ethan's financial activities. There was a long pause before William responded. That's unexpected. How much time do we have? Not enough. The board still votes tomorrow. Then I'll meet you at your office in 20 minutes, William decided. We have work to do. When Maya and James arrived at the Montgomery Capitol building, security informed them that William Davenport was already waiting in the lobby, looking agitated and exhausted. The night guard escorted all three to Maya's office, where William immediately began pacing, despite the late hour. "I've been a fool," he declared as soon as the door closed. "I built that company from nothing, then handed it over to a man who saw it only as a personal ATM." Maya lowered herself carefully into her chair, arranging her injured ankle on a cushion James provided. "When did you first suspect something was wrong?" William ran a hand through his silver hair. "About 8 months ago. The quarterly reports looked off. Not obviously wrong, but the numbers didn't align with what I was hearing from old industry contacts." "Why didn't you act sooner?" James asked, pouring 3 cups of coffee from the office machine. William accepted a cup with a grateful nod. "At first, I thought I was just being an interfering old man who couldn't let go. Then, when I started asking direct questions, Ethan produced plausible explanations, and Rebecca..." He sighed heavily. "Rebecca accused me of not trusting her husband, of trying to undermine her happiness." Maya observed William carefully, noting the genuine pain in his expression. For the first time, she saw not the arrogant billionaire who had humiliated her, but an aging man watching his life's work destroyed by someone he had trusted. "Have some coffee," she offered, gesturing to the cup James had placed before him. The small gesture of hospitality felt strangely significant. A decade ago, this man had made her feel worthless, and now she was offering him comfort in her territory. William took a sip, then set the cup down. "I need to show you something," he said, pulling a tablet from his briefcase. "Financial reports that never made it to the board. Ethan has been systematically hiding losses while increasing executive compensation, primarily his own." Maya and James pored over the documents, which confirmed their worst suspicions about Ethan's mismanagement. The company wasn't just underperforming, it was being deliberately hollowed out. "This is why he needs the sale to go through so quickly," Maya realized. Once the next quarterly results become public, even his shell company scheme wouldn't work. The stock would collapse completely. And in the chaos, no one would look too closely at where certain assets disappeared to, James added. Maya turned to William. "Why come to me with this? Why not go directly to the authorities?" William's answer was evasive. "Complicated family considerations," he murmured, not meeting her eyes. "You mean you didn't want to be the one to send your son-in-law to prison?" Maya translated flatly. William's shoulders slumped. "Rebecca may be blinded by loyalty to him, but she's still my daughter. I wanted to find a solution that didn't destroy her life completely." As they continued working through the night, Maya found herself occasionally distracted by flashes of memory. Rebecca's cruel smile at the wedding, the feeling of shrimp sauce soaking through her dress, the laughter that had followed her out of the ballroom. The contrast between that humiliation and her current position, working as an equal with William Davenport, while his daughter's husband faced potential criminal charges, was almost dizzying. By dawn, they had assembled a comprehensive case against Ethan, centered around his secret Cayman Islands account. This offshore haven contained not just diverted company funds, but also evidence of tax evasion that would interest Agent Donovan greatly. "We need to confront Ethan directly before the board meeting," Maya decided, checking her watch. "The Harrington Foundation breakfast is in 3 hours. He's scheduled to receive an award for corporate leadership in media innovation." William's laugh was bitter. The irony would be amusing if it weren't so tragic. Maya reached for her phone. I'll have my assistant bring appropriate clothes here. I assume you'll be attending as well? I wouldn't miss it, William confirmed. While waiting for her clothes to arrive, Maya consulted James about strategy. I'm concerned William may still have reservations about publicly exposing his son-in-law. James nodded thoughtfully. Family loyalty is powerful, even when misplaced. Are you sure you can trust him? Not entirely, Maya admitted. But his interests align with ours for now. He wants to save the company, even if he's ambivalent about destroying Ethan in the process. 3 hours later, Maya arrived at the Harrington Foundation breakfast, having selected her outfit with surgical precision, a crimson power suit that commanded attention without appearing aggressive. Despite her still painful ankle, she wore modest heels, refusing to show any weakness in this crucial confrontation. The ballroom of the Four Seasons Hotel was filled with Boston's business elite, many of whom Maya recognized from that fateful wedding reception a decade earlier. She felt their curious glances as she entered, their whispered commentary about her very public tumble down the stairs at yesterday's charity event. William joined her near the entrance, looking more composed after a quick trip home to change. Ethan and Rebecca are at the head table, he murmured. He's already drinking champagne, celebrating his impending windfall. Maya spotted them across the room. Ethan looking smugly confident in an expensive suit, Rebecca beside him in Chanel, both laughing with apparent carefree abandon. The sight strengthened her resolve. Follow my lead, she told William, but be prepared to back me up when he tries to dismiss the evidence. As they approached the head table, Maya caught Ethan mid-sentence, boasting to tablemates about the transformative international partnership that would be finalized that afternoon. When he noticed Maya, his smile faltered momentarily before returning with practiced charm. Ms. Wilson, he greeted smoothly, I'm surprised to see you up and about after your unfortunate accident. It would take more than a pushed fall to keep me from this conversation, Maya replied, her voice carrying just enough to make nearby guests glance over with interest. Rebecca flushed. No one pushed you. You were intoxicated and lost your balance. We both know that's not true, Maya said calmly, just as we both know about Cayman National Bank account 4285739. The color drained from Ethan's face. This is hardly the venue for business discussions. I agree, Maya said. Perhaps we should discuss it privately before your award presentation. I'd hate to interrupt your moment of recognition with details about your offshore accounts. Ethan's jaw tightened as he glanced at the surrounding tables, where potential witnesses were pretending not to listen. Fine. 5 minutes in the hotel library. As Ethan rose to follow Maya and William to a more private setting, Rebecca grabbed his arm. What's happening? What is she talking about? Nothing important, Ethan assured her. Just last-minute negotiation tactics. Maya could see the doubt flickering in Rebecca's eyes, perhaps the first genuine uncertainty her perfect, privileged life had ever experienced. You're welcome to join us, Rebecca, she offered. In fact, I think you should. This concerns your family legacy as much as anyone's. Rebecca hesitated, then gathered her designer purse and followed them, her stiletto heels clicking aggressively against the marble floor. As the four of them left the ballroom, Maya caught James's eye across the room, where he was positioned with his phone ready to record whatever happened next. The hotel's wood-paneled library was empty at this early hour, providing the privacy they needed for what promised to be an explosive confrontation. Maya carefully arranged her evidence on a polished table, while Ethan paced nervously, and Rebecca watched with growing suspicion. What exactly is going on? Rebecca demanded, looking between her father and husband. Why are we meeting with her? William walked to his daughter and placed his hands gently on her shoulders. Because you need to know the truth about what's happening to our company. Arriving at the charity gala, Maya saw Rebecca conversing agitatedly with Ethan. By their gestures, it appeared she had discovered something about her husband's plans, and their discussion was about to explode. Rebecca's expression shifted from anger to shock as she processed William's words. The hushed conversation with Ethan halted abruptly when she spotted Maya approaching. Ethan's face hardened, his hand gripping Rebecca's arm possessively as he whispered something urgent in her ear. Maya moved through the charity gala with practiced grace, despite the undercurrent of tension flowing through the room. The elite of Boston's business community mingled among crystal chandeliers and ice sculptures, cocktails in hand, oblivious to the drama unfolding in their midst. Her black gown conveyed elegant authority, chosen specifically for this confrontation. As Maya drew closer to the couple, she caught fragments of Ethan's hurried explanation. "Just trying to stir up trouble, jealous of our success." His voice trailed off when he realized Maya was within earshot. "Good evening," Maya said smoothly, champagne flute in hand. "Lovely event, isn't it?" Rebecca's eyes narrowed with undisguised hostility. "What are you doing here? Haven't you caused enough trouble?" "I was invited," Maya replied, nodding toward the event's host across the room. "Though I'm surprised to see you both here rather than preparing for tomorrow's board meeting. The one that will determine Davenport Communications' future." Ethan's polished smile didn't reach his eyes. "The board meeting is a formality. The deal is already set." "Is it?" Maya took a calculated sip of champagne. "I would have thought certain financial irregularities might complicate matters." Ethan's composure slipped momentarily. He glanced around to ensure no one was listening before stepping closer to Maya. "Whatever you think you know." "Cayman National Bank, account number 422-85739, Maya interrupted quietly. $30 million that rightfully belongs to Davenport shareholders. The color drained from Ethan's face as recognition flickered in his eyes. He recovered quickly, forcing a laugh. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "I think you do," Maya continued, her voice low but firm. "Just as I think you know exactly what the shell company in Hong Kong is designed to do once the acquisition is complete." Rebecca looked between them, confusion replacing her initial hostility. "Ethan, what is she talking about? What shell company?" "Nothing," Ethan snapped, too forcefully. "She's just trying to sabotage our deal with baseless accusations." Maya turned to Rebecca. "Ask your husband about the separate bank account. Ask him about the flight reservations to Macau next week. Just one passenger, not two." Rebecca's perfectly manicured hand tightened around her champagne flute. "Ethan, what flight reservations?" "This is ridiculous," Ethan hissed. "She's manipulating you, Rebecca. Don't you see that?" Maya maintained her calm demeanor. "The SEC might be looking the other way, but the Treasury Department takes tax evasion very seriously. Their investigation is already underway." Ethan's careful facade cracked further. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Maya pulled her phone from her clutch, displaying an email from Agent Donovan's office. "The evidence speaks for itself. Your elaborate scheme is unraveling, Ethan. The only question is whether you'll drag the entire Davenport legacy down with you." Rebecca stepped between them, her earlier confidence replaced by uncertainty. "I found documents in your office last night, Ethan. Transfer approvals I never saw before, signed with your authorization." "You went through my private files?" Ethan's tone shifted from defensive to accusatory. "After what she said at the restaurant, I just wanted to prove her wrong," Rebecca admitted, her voice barely audible above the orchestra's music. "But what I found, the numbers don't make sense, Ethan. Where is that money going?" Maya watched the exchange with calculated patience. The seeds of doubt she'd planted were taking root, exactly as planned. William Davenport appeared at the edge of the gathering, catching Maya's eye with a subtle nod. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private," Maya suggested. "Your father is concerned as well, Rebecca." My father is part of this? Rebecca's voice rose slightly, drawing glances from nearby guests. Ethan seized Rebecca's arm, pulling her closer. Don't listen to her. This is exactly what she wants, to drive a wedge between us, between our family. If there's nothing to hide, then there's nothing to fear from transparency, Maya countered. The board deserves to know exactly what they're voting on tomorrow. Sensing his control slipping, Ethan's expression darkened. You've been plotting this for years, haven't you? Ever since that wedding, this whole acquisition attempt, it was never about business. It was about revenge. This stopped being about revenge the moment I discovered you were defrauding shareholders, Maya replied evenly, including your own family. Rebecca's composure fractured completely. Stop talking about my family like you know anything about us. Her voice carried across the nearby tables, causing conversations to falter. I know enough, Maya said softly. I know your husband is planning to disappear with millions while leaving you to face the consequences. That's a lie. Rebecca shoved Maya forcefully, her face contorted with rage. Maya stumbled backward, unprepared for the physical assault. Her heel caught on the edge of a decorative marble step behind her, throwing her off balance completely. Time seemed to slow as she fell, tumbling backward down the ornamental staircase that led to the event's main floor. Pain exploded through Maya's body as she collided with the hard edges of each step. Somewhere in the haze of shock, she was aware of gasps from onlookers, the shattering of her champagne glass, and a waiter rushing to break her fall at the bottom of the stairs. The world spun sickeningly as Maya lay on the cold marble, her ankle throbbing with searing pain. Above her, Rebecca stood frozen at the top of the stairs, horror replacing anger as she realized what she'd done. William pushed through the gathering crowd, genuine concern etched across his face. Ethan pulled a shell-shocked Rebecca away from the scene, whispering urgently in her ear as camera phones captured the entire incident. Don't move, someone advised as Maya tried to sit up. An ambulance is on the way. The next hours passed in a blur of paramedics, emergency room lights, and doctors' concerned voices. X-rays confirmed a sprained ankle and minor contusions. Painful, but not serious. Maya lay in the sterile hospital room, staring at the ceiling as the medication dulled the physical pain, but did nothing for the sting of public humiliation. James arrived as the doctor finished wrapping her ankle, his expression grave. He waited until they were alone before delivering the devastating news. The board called an emergency session, he explained quietly, sitting in the visitor's chair beside her bed. After your incident went viral, Maya's stomach tightened. What do you mean, viral? James grimaced, showing her his tablet. The screen displayed a social media post with a video of her fall, already viewed over 100,000 times. The caption read, Montgomery Capital exec takes a tumble after confrontation with Davenport heiress. Corporate catfight. They've voted to withdraw from the Davenport acquisition entirely, James continued, his voice heavy with regret. Too much negative publicity, they said. With the SEC's reluctance and now this. He gestured toward the tablet. They're concerned about the firm's reputation. Maya stared at the ceiling, feeling a decade of work slipping away. My own company betrayed me. I fought for you, Maya, James said earnestly, but they were unanimous. The Montgomery board sees this as a liability now, not an opportunity. Closing her eyes against the harsh hospital lights, Maya felt a wave of despair wash over her. I lost, she whispered. 10 years of work for nothing. Maybe it's time to move on, James suggested gently, squeezing her hand. This vendetta against the Davenports, it's consumed too much of your life already. Maya opened her mouth to respond when a knock at the door interrupted them. A nurse poked her head in. Ms. Wilson, there's someone here to see you. A tall man in a crisp suit entered, his expression serious as he displayed a federal badge. Ms. Wilson, I'm Special Agent Donovan, with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. The evidence you gathered has triggered a separate tax investigation into Ethan Carson. I believe we have mutual interests to discuss." Maya stared at Special Agent Donovan's badge, her mind racing with new possibilities. After introducing himself, the Treasury agent pulled up a chair beside her hospital bed, his demeanor all business despite the late hour. "We've been monitoring unusual financial patterns connected to Ethan Carson for months," he explained, opening a slim leather portfolio. "Your evidence provided the missing pieces we needed to escalate our investigation." "How did you even know about my evidence?" Maya asked, wincing as she shifted to a more comfortable position. Agent Donovan's mouth twitched in what might have been a smile. "Let's just say not everyone at the SEC agrees with their official position. Some people still believe in doing the right thing." James leaned forward, instantly alert. "What exactly does the Treasury Department want from Maya?" "Cooperation," Donovan replied simply. "Ms. Wilson has insights into Carson's activities that would take us weeks to develop independently. We have the federal authority she lacks. Together, we might still prevent the sale." Hope flickered in Maya's chest, but she tempered it with caution. "The board votes tomorrow at noon. That doesn't give us much time." "Then we should get started immediately," Donovan said, sliding a confidentiality agreement across her tray table. "This authorizes you to share information with our investigation without legal exposure." After Agent Donovan left with digital copies of Maya's most crucial evidence, James helped her check out of the hospital against medical advice. The doctor had strongly recommended rest for her injured ankle, but Maya had no intention of lying idle while the most important battle of her professional life reached its climax. "You should go home and recover," James advised as he supported her to his waiting car. "Home is the last place I need to be right now," Maya replied, grimacing as she settled into the passenger seat. "Take me to my office. We have less than 12 hours to prevent this sale." As they drove through Boston's quiet nighttime streets, Maya's phone rang. The screen displayed William Davenport's number, causing both her and James to exchange looks of surprise. "William," she answered, keeping her voice steady despite the pain medication clouding her thoughts. "I assume you've heard about my hospital visit." "The entire city has heard by now," he replied, sounding exhausted. "Rebecca is beside herself, not with remorse, I should clarify, but with fear of assault charges. Ethan has her convinced you'll press charges." "That's the least of their concerns at the moment," Maya said. "The Treasury Department has opened an investigation into Ethan's financial activities." The silence that followed spoke volumes. Finally, William sighed heavily. "That's unexpected. How much time do we have?" "Not enough. The board still votes tomorrow." "I'll meet you at your office in 20 minutes, William decided, his voice suddenly energized. "We have work to do." When Maya and James arrived at the Montgomery Capitol building, security informed them that William Davenport was already waiting in the lobby. The night guard escorted all three to Maya's office, where the conversation immediately turned to strategy. "Agent Donovan believes there's enough evidence to freeze the transaction," Maya explained, lowering herself carefully into her chair. "But federal investigations move slowly and we don't have that luxury." William paced the office, looking more disheveled than Maya had ever seen him. "We need to approach each board member individually before the meeting. I still have personal relationships with most of them." "They respect you," Maya acknowledged, "but they fear Ethan. He's been systematically replacing independent directors with his allies for years." As dawn approached, they had developed a multi-pronged strategy. William would contact sympathetic board members, Agent Donovan would prepare emergency injunction paperwork, and Maya would compile a simplified presentation of the evidence that even non-financial executives could understand. At 7 a.m., Maya's assistant arrived with fresh clothes and breakfast. By 8, Maya had rehearsed her presentation twice, ignoring the throbbing pain in her ankle. At 9, her phone rang. with devastating news. Rebecca had filed assault charges against her, claiming Maya had made threatening remarks before falling accidentally. "She's trying to discredit you," William said grimly after Maya relayed the news. "Make it look like you're unstable and vindictive." "It's actually clever," Maya admitted reluctantly. "If I'm seen as having a personal vendetta, the financial evidence becomes tainted by association." By 10:30, they had received another blow. 3 previously supportive board members had switched their positions, likely pressured by Ethan overnight. The vote was now almost certainly going to favor the sale. "We're running out of options," James said, frustration evident in his voice. Maya stared at the conference room whiteboard, where they'd mapped out the increasingly desperate situation. The Davenport board meeting would begin in 90 minutes. Montgomery Capital had abandoned her. The SEC was compromised. Even with the Treasury Department's interest, they couldn't move fast enough to prevent the vote. "There's one option we haven't considered," Maya said finally, her voice quiet but determined. "Rebecca." William looked up sharply. "Rebecca, she pushed you down a flight of stairs less than 24 hours ago." "Because she was defending what she thought was true," Maya replied. "What if we could make her see the actual truth?" "She'd never believe you over Ethan," James objected. "She might not believe me," Maya conceded, reaching for her phone. "But she might believe evidence she discovers herself." With trembling fingers, Maya composed a text message to Rebecca Davenport Carson. "I'm not pressing charges, but before you finalize anything today, check Ethan's travel reservations for Friday. Macau is lovely this time of year, especially when you're traveling alone with $30 million. William read the message over her shoulder. "She'll ignore it." "Maybe," Maya agreed. "But doubt is a powerful thing once it takes root." 30 minutes. Later, with no response from Rebecca, Maya was beginning to think William was right. They were packaging their evidence for Agent Donovan when Maya's phone rang with an unknown number. "Is it true?" Rebecca's voice was barely above a whisper. "About Macau?" Maya's pulse quickened. "Check his travel account. The confirmation email should be there." "I can't access his accounts," Rebecca said, frustration evident in her tone. "Yes, you can," Maya replied calmly. "Use his iPad. He syncs everything to it. The password is your anniversary date, but with the month and day reversed. At least that's what our research suggests." The silence that followed stretched for nearly a minute. Maya could hear faint sounds of movement, then rapid typing. When Rebecca spoke again, her voice had changed completely. "There's a first-class reservation to Macau for Friday. 1 passenger." The shock in her voice was palpable. "And emails about property viewings there next week. Now check your joint banking app," Maya instructed gently. "Look for any accounts you don't recognize." More silence, then a sharp intake of breath. "There's a second account I've never seen before, with his name only." "Rebecca, I need you to listen carefully," Maya said, making eye contact with William across the desk. "The company Ethan is selling to isn't a legitimate Chinese investment group. It's a shell corporation that he controls through intermediaries. Once the sale goes through, he's planning to strip the valuable assets, deposit the money in his Cayman account, and disappear to Macau." "Why should I believe you?" Rebecca demanded, though her voice lacked conviction. "Because unlike Ethan, I have nothing to gain by lying to you now," Maya answered simply. "Your father is here with me. He's seen the evidence too." "My father is with you?" "Put him on." William took the phone, his voice softening as he spoke to his daughter. "Rebecca, I didn't want to believe it either. But it's true. All of it." The conversation lasted another 10 minutes, with Rebecca's denial gradually giving way to devastating comprehension. By the end, she was sobbing quietly into the phone. "The board meeting starts in 40 minutes, she said finally. "What do you want me to do?" Maya reclaimed the phone. "We need you to help us expose him, today, before the vote. He'll deny everything, Rebecca warned. Not if we have concrete proof, Maya countered. Do you have access to his office? Yes, I have a key. Good. We need you to find and photograph any documents related to Eastern Horizon Investments or Macau. And Rebecca, Maya paused, choosing her words carefully. We need you to record any conversations with Ethan about the deal from now until the meeting. You want me to spy on my husband? Rebecca's voice cracked. I want you to protect your family's legacy, Maya corrected gently. The company your father built is being stolen from under your nose. After ending the call, Maya sat back in her chair, exhaustion threatening to overwhelm her. James placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. Do you think she'll really help us? He asked, skeptically. She has no choice, Maya replied. Rebecca Davenport has built her entire identity around being a successful socialite with a perfect life. Ethan's betrayal threatens everything she values: her status, her wealth, her very self-image. She'll do whatever it takes to protect what's hers. As the clock ticked closer to the board meeting, Maya prepared for every contingency. If Rebecca delivered the evidence they needed, they could stop the vote directly. If she faltered, Agent Donovan stood ready with federal intervention, though that would likely come too late to prevent the initial sale. At 11:45, with 15 minutes before the scheduled vote, Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Got recordings and documents. Meeting you in the lobby, coming down now. Relief washed over Maya as she gathered her materials and, prepared to leave for Davenport headquarters. This was their last chance to prevent the sale and expose Ethan's scheme. As Maya, William, and James headed for the elevator, Maya's phone buzzed again. The message from Rebecca made her blood run cold. Ethan discovered everything. He's destroying evidence and threatened my life. Don't know if I can make it to the meeting. Maya's blood ran cold as she stared at Rebecca's desperate message. Panic threatened to overtake her, but years of high-pressure negotiations had taught her to think clearly, even when disaster loomed. Change of plans, she announced to William and James, showing them the text. Rebecca's in danger. Ethan knows. William's face drained of color. We need to call the police. No time, Maya decided, punching the elevator button repeatedly. If we involve the authorities now, Ethan will have destroyed everything by the time they navigate the bureaucracy. We need to get to that board meeting. The elevator doors opened with excruciating slowness. As they descended to the lobby, Maya's mind raced through possibilities. James, call Agent Donovan. Tell him to meet us at Davenport headquarters with whatever federal authority he can muster on short notice. What about Rebecca? William asked, his voice tight with concern. Ethan won't risk harming her physically before the meeting, Maya reasoned, though uncertainty gnawed at her. He needs her there to maintain appearances. The sleek black car James had arranged sped through Boston's financial district, weaving through late-morning traffic with practiced precision. Maya checked her watch. 20 minutes until the board meeting began. Her ankle throbbed painfully as tension mounted, a physical reminder of yesterday's very public humiliation. We're going in with or without Rebecca's evidence, Maya stated firmly. William, are you prepared to face your daughter if this goes badly? The aging CEO nodded grimly. I've spent too many years choosing peace over truth. Not today. As they approached the towering glass edifice of Davenport Communications, Maya spotted a familiar figure huddled in the shadow of a side entrance. Stop the car. Rebecca Davenport Carson looked nothing like the polished socialite who had pushed Maya down a staircase 24 hours earlier. Her designer outfit was rumpled, her makeup smeared from tears, and most alarmingly, a purpling bruise was forming around her left eye. William was out of the car before it fully stopped, rushing to his daughter with surprising speed for a man his age. Rebecca, did he? Not here, she interrupted, glancing nervously at the building's security cameras. She clutched a leather portfolio to her chest like a shield. "He caught me downloading files from his computer. I managed to get these before—" Her voice broke. Maya extended her hand from the car's back seat. "Get in. We have 15 minutes." The tension in the vehicle was palpable as Rebecca settled beside her father, as far from Maya as the confined space would allow. James directed the driver to circle the block while they formulated their final strategy. "What did you get?" Maya asked, nodding toward the portfolio. Rebecca hesitated, then handed it over. "Bank statements, emails, a recorded conversation from this morning when I confronted him about Macau." Her voice hardened. "And the prenuptial agreement he never told me had a clause allowing him to claim 30% of my Davenport shares in the event of a business disagreement." Maya quickly rifled through the documents, her pulse quickening as she recognized key evidence. "This is exactly what we need. The board can't ignore these smoking guns." She looked up at Rebecca. "Are you prepared to present this evidence yourself? It would carry more weight coming from you." Rebecca touched her bruised eye gingerly. "After this, I'll do whatever it takes to destroy him." William placed a protective arm around his daughter's shoulders. "We'll stand together." "There's something else you should know," Rebecca added, her voice dropping. "Ethan has 3 board members in his pocket: Harrington, Watkins, and Chen. He's been paying them consulting fees through shell companies." Maya exchanged a look with James. "That explains the sudden vote shifts this morning." She checked her watch again. 7 minutes. We need to go in now." The Davenport Communications boardroom occupied the entire top floor of the building, offering panoramic views of Boston Harbor through floor-to-ceiling windows. By the time Maya's group arrived, most board members were already seated around the massive mahogany table, with Ethan standing at the head, meticulously arranging presentation materials. His confident smile faltered momentarily when the doors opened to reveal not only William, but Maya and Rebecca as well, the latter's bruised face causing a ripple of murmurs around the table. "What is the meaning of this?" Ethan demanded, quickly recovering his composure. "This is a closed board meeting. Security!" "Stand down, Mr. Carson," William commanded, his voice carrying the authority of decades at the helm. "As majority shareholder, I have every right to bring advisors to this meeting." An older board member, Jenkins, Maya recalled from her research, rose halfway from his seat. "Rebecca, what happened to your face?" Before Ethan could interject, Rebecca stepped forward. "My husband happened, Mr. Jenkins, when I discovered evidence that he's been systematically defrauding this company and planning to abscond with millions in diverted funds." Chaos erupted around the table. Board members talked over one another while Ethan pounded his fist, demanding order. Through the confusion, Maya noticed 3 men, presumably Harrington, Watkins, and Chen, exchanging worried glances. "These are outrageous allegations," Ethan shouted above the din. "My wife is clearly unstable. She's been conspiring with this—" He jabbed a finger toward Maya. "This vindictive competitor who's been trying to sabotage our company for personal reasons." The room gradually quieted as board members turned expectantly toward Maya. This was the moment she had worked toward for 10 years, yet it felt nothing like the triumphant scenario she had imagined. Standing beside the bruised daughter of her former tormentor, Maya realized this had evolved beyond personal vindication into something more complex, and perhaps more important. "Board members of Davenport Communications," she began, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. "My name is Maya Wilson. 10 years ago, I was publicly humiliated at Rebecca Davenport's wedding by her father and new husband. That experience changed the course of my life, ultimately leading me to a career in finance and to this room today." She paused, noting the flicker of recognition in several board members' eyes. "But what brings me here today isn't that decade-old grudge. It's evidence of financial fraud, tax evasion, and corporate theft orchestrated by Ethan Carson." Over the next 10 minutes, Maya methodically presented the evidence Rebecca had gathered, projecting bank statements and emails onto the boardroom's screen while James distributed printed copies. Rebecca played the damning audio recording of Ethan admitting to his plans, his voice filling the shocked silence of the boardroom. "The Chinese investment group you're voting to approve today doesn't exist," Maya concluded. "Eastern Horizon Investments is a shell corporation controlled by Mr. Carson through intermediaries. This sale isn't a legitimate business transaction. It's theft, plain and simple." Ethan's face had grown increasingly pale during the presentation, his confident demeanor crumbling with each new piece of evidence. When Maya finished, he lunged toward the door, only to find James Chen blocking his exit. "You can't believe this fabricated nonsense," Ethan sputtered, looking desperately around the room for allies. "She's manipulated my wife, filled her head with paranoid delusions." "Was it a delusion that prompted you to book a one-way flight to Macau for Friday?" Rebecca asked coldly. "Or to sign a lease on a villa there starting next week?" Before Ethan could respond, the boardroom doors opened to admit Agent Donovan, flanked by 2 additional Treasury agents. "Ethan Carson, I'm Special Agent Donovan with FinCEN. We have some questions about your offshore accounts." As the federal agents escorted a shell-shocked Ethan from the room, the board erupted once more into chaotic discussion. William Davenport rose from his seat, commanding attention with the authority that had built his media empire. "Ladies and gentlemen of the board, today's vote on the proposed sale is clearly moot, but we face a crisis that requires immediate action." He drew a deep breath, glancing briefly at Maya before continuing. "Therefore, I propose that we accept a new acquisition offer, led by Montgomery Capital, with one critical condition, that Maya Wilson be appointed CEO to guide our restructuring." The stunned silence that followed was broken by Rebecca's voice, steady despite her obvious exhaustion. "I second the proposal." Jenkins, the senior board member who had first noticed Rebecca's injury, cleared his throat. "While I appreciate Ms. Wilson's help in exposing this fraud, this is highly irregular. Montgomery Capital withdrew their offer yesterday." "I'm not proposing this as Montgomery's representative," Maya clarified. "Their board has indeed withdrawn support. But I believe in this company's potential enough to lead a separate investment group, backed by private capital. If the board agrees, we can have term sheets ready by tomorrow." As board members began discussing the unprecedented proposal, William pulled Maya and Rebecca aside. "Will you truly have funding by tomorrow?" he asked quietly. Maya smiled slightly. "James has been making calls since this morning. Several investors, who were hesitant about a hostile takeover, are suddenly very interested in a rescue operation with positive PR potential." Rebecca studied Maya with newfound respect. "You're still going through with this? Even after everything?" "Especially after everything," Maya replied. "Some opportunities are too perfect to pass up." Later that afternoon, as Maya sat in William Davenport's former office reviewing preliminary transition documents, James entered with a triumphant smile. "The board voted 7-3 in favor of your proposal. Congratulations, CEO Wilson." Maya gazed out at the Boston skyline, the reality of her victory still sinking in. "Have the 3 holdouts arrested with Ethan?" "Not yet, but Agent Donovan is reviewing their consulting arrangements as we speak." A soft knock interrupted them as Rebecca hesitantly entered the office, her bruise now partially concealed with makeup. "My father asked me to bring you the company bylaws and historical documents. He thought you might want to familiarize yourself with the Davenport legacy." Maya accepted the heavy binder, noticing Rebecca's reluctance to meet her eyes. "Thank you." As Rebecca turned to leave, Maya called after her. "Rebecca, I'm not planning to erase the Davenport name from this company. Legacy matters when it's worth preserving." Rebecca paused in the doorway, finally meeting Maya's gaze directly. "After the sale is formalized, I'd like to discuss potential involvement in the charitable foundation. I have some ideas about community outreach programs. I'd like that, Maya replied, surprised by her own sincerity. After Rebecca departed, James gave Maya a questioning look. Are you sure about this? Working with the Davenports after everything they put you through? Maya traced her fingers over the company logo embossed on the binder. Some people spend their lives seeking revenge, James. I'd rather build something lasting instead. As the evening shadows lengthened across her new office, Maya received a text message from William. Board approval secured. Official announcement tomorrow. There's something you need to know about that night 10 years ago, something that may change your perception of everything that's happened since then. Maya stared at William's cryptic message, her mind racing with possibilities. What could he possibly reveal about that night that would change her understanding of everything since? The notification light on her phone blinked insistently, demanding a response. But before she could reply, James interrupted her thoughts. It's almost midnight, Maya. The official announcement goes out at 9 tomorrow morning. You should get some rest. Maya reluctantly pocketed her phone. You're right. Tomorrow will be the most important day of my career. Despite her exhaustion, sleep eluded Maya that night. She tossed in her bed, replaying the day's events and wondering about William's mysterious message. When her alarm finally chimed at 5:30 a.m., she rose with a strange mixture of triumph and trepidation. She dressed with particular care, selecting a tailored charcoal suit that conveyed authority without ostentation. Today would be about substance, not spectacle. As she applied her makeup, Maya studied her reflection, searching for traces of the humiliated young woman in the beige dress. That woman was still there, somewhere beneath the polished exterior, but transformed by determination and resilience. The Davenport Communications headquarters buzzed with nervous energy when Maya arrived at 7:45 a.m. Employees whispered in clusters, their conversations dying as she passed. News of Ethan's arrest had spread throughout the company, though the details remained murky. Security escorted Maya to the executive floor, where James waited with coffee and the morning's financial papers. The stock is already up 12% in pre-market trading, he reported, handing her a steaming cup. Word of Ethan's removal has investors optimistic. Maya took a grateful sip. Any word from William? He's meeting with the PR team to finalize the announcement. Rebecca called in sick, understandably. The next hour passed in a flurry of preparations. Maya reviewed key talking points for the press conference, met briefly with department heads, and fielded calls from anxious investors. At precisely 8:55 a.m., William Davenport knocked on her temporary office door. It's time, he said simply. Maya gathered her notes and followed him to the boardroom, where cameras had been set up for the live announcement. Board members stood in a supportive semicircle behind the podium, their expressions ranging from cautiously optimistic to outright skeptical. William approached the microphone first, his posture straight, despite his years. Good morning. As you know, yesterday brought unprecedented challenges to Davenport Communications. The board has acted swiftly to ensure stability and protect shareholder value. He paused, scanning the assembled reporters and employees. It is therefore my privilege to announce that the board of Davenport Communications has accepted a new acquisition offer, led by an investment group organized by Maya Wilson, with the condition that Ms. Wilson herself be appointed CEO to oversee our restructuring and renewal. A murmur rippled through the audience as cameras flashed. William gestured Maya forward to join him at the podium. Ms. Wilson brings extraordinary financial acumen and a fresh perspective to our company. I have complete confidence that under her leadership, Davenport Communications will not only recover from recent troubles, but emerge stronger than before. Maya stepped to the microphone, her heart pounding, but her voice steady. Thank you, Mr. Davenport. To the employees, shareholders, and partners of Davenport Communications, I pledge to honor the legacy of excellence that built this company while guiding it toward a sustainable future. The remainder of the press conference passed in a blur of questions about Ethan's fraud, the company's financial outlook, and Maya's vision for the future. She answered each with measured confidence, neither dwelling on the scandal nor minimizing its seriousness. When the cameras finally powered down, William approached Maya with a hint of pride in his tired eyes. "You handled that like a seasoned executive." "I've had years to prepare," she replied with a small smile. "About that message I sent last night," William began. But they were interrupted by James bringing urgent documents requiring Maya's signature. "Perhaps we could discuss it over dinner tonight? There's much you should know." Maya nodded, curious but focused on the immediate demands of her new position. 8 o'clock? The private room at Maison Laurent? "I'll be there," William confirmed before departing. The day dissolved into a whirlwind of meetings, briefings, and urgent decisions. Maya moved through it all with calculated precision, absorbing the complex organizational structure of Davenport Communications while identifying immediate priorities. By late afternoon, she had met with key executives, reviewed the company's financial position in detail, and begun drafting a stabilization plan. At 6:30 p.m., Maya finally took a moment to breathe, gazing out the floor-to-ceiling windows of what was now her office. Boston spread beneath her, city lights beginning to twinkle as dusk descended. Her phone buzzed with a message from Rebecca. "Will not be at dinner tonight. Still processing everything. Need time." Maya understood. Rebecca's entire world had imploded in less than 48 hours. Her husband exposed as a fraud, her family company changing hands, and her own complicity in Maya's public humiliation laid bare. Healing those wounds would take more than platitudes at a dinner table. At 7:45 p.m., Maya's private car delivered her to Maison Laurent. The maitre d' escorted her to the restaurant's most secluded private dining room, where William already waited, nursing a glass of sparkling water. "No scotch tonight either?" Maya asked as she took her seat. William shook his head. "Those days are behind me. Doctor's orders after my heart attack last year." "I didn't know about your health issues," Maya said, genuinely surprised. Her extensive research had somehow missed this critical detail. "Few do. We kept it quiet." William studied her face for a moment. "You look remarkably like your mother, you know." Maya froze, her water glass halfway to her lips. "My mother? How would you know what my mother looked like?" William's expression softened with something like regret. "Because I knew her, Maya. Quite well, in fact." The waiter's arrival interrupted this bombshell, forcing a pause as they ordered. When they were alone again, Maya leaned forward, her appetite forgotten. "Explain," she demanded. William sighed heavily. "Elena Wilson worked for Davenport Communications in the early 90s before you were born. She was brilliant, started in accounting, but quickly proved herself capable of much more. We worked closely together during a difficult transition period." Maya struggled to process this information. "You're saying my mother worked for you? That's what you wanted to tell me about that night 10 years ago?" "No," William said quietly. "What I need to tell you is that I recognized you immediately at Rebecca's wedding. I knew exactly who you were the moment I saw you." "That's impossible," Maya countered. "We'd never met before that night." William reached into his jacket and withdrew an old photograph, sliding it across the table. This was taken at the company holiday party in 1992. Maya stared at the faded image, her mother, young and beautiful, standing beside a younger William Davenport. Something in their posture, the slight tilt of their bodies toward each other, suggested intimacy. "You had an affair with my mother," Maya whispered, the pieces falling into place. William's eyes held hers steadily. "It was more than an affair, Maya. Elena and I were in love. When she told me she was pregnant, I was overjoyed, until my father threatened to disinherit me if I left my wife for a glorified bookkeeper." The implications crashed over Maya like a wave, Are you saying I'm your biological father, Maya? The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Maya gripped the edge of the table, fighting for equilibrium as 32 years of questions about her parentage collapsed into this single, impossible answer. That night at the wedding, William continued, his voice thick with emotion, I recognized you immediately. You have her eyes, her determination. But I was a coward. Instead of acknowledging you, I participated in humiliating you. It's the greatest regret of my life. If you knew who I was, why would you do that? Maya demanded, anger displacing shock. Because I was afraid, William admitted. Afraid that you somehow knew the truth and had come to expose me. Afraid of losing everything, including Rebecca's love. So I reacted despicably, trying to drive you away. Maya's mind raced through implications. Did Ethan and Rebecca know? No. No one knew except Elena and me. She refused my money, refused any contact. She wanted to raise you independently, free from Davenport influence. The waiter returned with their appetizers, forcing them into awkward silence until they were alone again. Maya pushed her plate away, appetite completely gone. So all these years, my struggle to prove myself, to rise high enough to confront you, I was actually fighting my own father. William flinched at the word. I don't deserve that title, Maya. I forfeited it through decades of cowardice. And now? Why tell me now, when I've finally achieved everything I worked for? Because you deserve the truth, William replied simply. And because I'm dying. The heart condition is worse than I've let on. 6 months, perhaps a year. Maya sat back, overwhelmed by revelations that transformed her understanding of her entire life. The revenge that had driven her for a decade suddenly seemed hollow, complicated by biological connections she'd never imagined. I need time to process this, she said finally, rising from her seat. This changes everything. William nodded sadly. I understand. For what it's worth, Maya, watching you become the woman you are today, despite my failures, not because of any help from me, has been the greatest pride of my life. As Maya turned to leave, she paused, one last question burning in her mind. Does Rebecca know you're telling me this? Not yet, William sighed. But she will. It's time all the secrets in this family were brought to light. While members of the board exited the meeting in shock about the day's revelations, William pulled Maya aside to a quiet corner and said, There's something you need to know about that night, 10 years ago, something that may change your perception of everything that's happened since then. 6 months had passed since the revelation that had shaken Maya's understanding of her entire life. The spring sun streamed through the windows of her corner office at Davenport Communications, casting golden light across the quarterly reports she'd been reviewing. She glanced at her calendar, confirming what she already knew. Tonight was the gala, her first official event as CEO. Maya set down her pen and walked to the window, surveying the Boston skyline that had witnessed her remarkable journey. The company under her leadership had exceeded all expectations, with stock prices rebounding 40% and employee morale reaching record highs. Yet amid the professional triumphs, Maya still grappled with the personal revelation that William Davenport, the man whose approval she had once craved and whose humiliation had fueled a decade of ambition, was her biological father. Their relationship remained complicated. After that fateful dinner 6 months ago, Maya had needed space to process the shocking truth. William Ney had respected her boundaries, communicating primarily through formal channels about company matters. Only in the past month had they begun tentative steps toward something resembling a father-daughter relationship, meeting weekly for coffee in Maya's office. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. James entered, carrying a garment bag. Your special delivery arrived, he said, hanging the bag on the office door. Are you absolutely certain about this? Maya smiled. Some symbols are too powerful to ignore, James. He nodded, understanding the significance without needing explanation. The venue is ready. The caterers have finished setting up, and the first guests will arrive in 3 hours. Thank you, Maya replied. Not just for this, but for everything. For believing in me even when my motivations weren't entirely pure. James squeezed her shoulder gently. Your motivations evolved, Maya. That's what growth looks like. After James departed, Maya returned to her desk, picking up a framed photograph she'd recently added. Her mother, Elena Wilson, young and determined, holding baby Maya in her arms. Since discovering her parentage, Maya had spent countless hours with her mother's journals and photographs, piecing together the story of a woman who had chosen independence over security, who had raised her daughter alone, rather than accept William's conditions. I understand now, Mom, she whispered to the photo. You wanted me to succeed on my own terms, not as a Davenport. Later that afternoon, Maya retreated to her private bathroom to prepare for the evening. She carefully applied her makeup, styled her hair in an elegant updo, and finally unzipped the garment bag. Inside hung a beige dress, not the original from that humiliating night, which had been damaged beyond repair, but one of identical design she'd had custom-made for this occasion. Maya slipped it on. The simple lines and modest cut, a stark contrast to the designer gowns she could now easily afford. Standing before the mirror, she saw both versions of herself, the young woman who had been laughed out of a wedding reception, and the accomplished CEO who had transformed a failing company into a beacon of innovation. The dress connected them, a tangible reminder of how far she had come. Her phone chimed with a message from James. Car waiting downstairs whenever you're ready. The gala venue was the same grand ballroom where Rebecca's wedding reception had been held a decade earlier, though Maya had transformed it completely. Gone were the ostentatious ice sculptures and crystal displays. Instead, the space was arranged as an interactive showcase highlighting Davenport Communications' new youth education initiatives. One section featured coding workshops for underprivileged students. Another demonstrated digital journalism tools being donated to public schools. Maya arrived early, watching from a quiet corner as staff made final adjustments. The symbolism wasn't lost on her. This room that had witnessed her deepest humiliation now served as the stage for her greatest professional achievement. Impressive transformation, came a voice behind her. William Davenport, looking frailer than he had 6 months ago, approached with measured steps. His illness was advancing, though he worked diligently to hide the physical toll. Thank you for coming, Maya replied, genuine warmth in her voice despite the complexity of their relationship. I wasn't sure you would. William's eyes crinkled with a sad smile. I wouldn't miss it, though I admit, seeing that dress again brings back memories I'd rather forget. That's precisely why I'm wearing it, Maya said. Some things shouldn't be forgotten. They should be transformed. Guests began arriving. Boston's business elite now viewing Maya through an entirely different lens than they had 10 years earlier. Where once they had seen an interloper, now they saw a visionary leader who had rescued a venerable institution. Board members greeted her with respect, employees with genuine admiration. As Maya circulated through the room, accepting congratulations and discussing future initiatives, she spotted Rebecca standing uncertainly near the entrance. Their relationship had evolved into a cautious professional respect over the past months. After Ethan's conviction for fraud and tax evasion, Rebecca had thrown herself into revitalizing the Davenport Foundation, working closely with Maya on educational outreach programs. Maya approached her, noting the simple elegance of Rebecca's attire, tasteful but deliberately understated, as if she too were making a statement about values. Rebecca, I'm glad you could make it, Maya said, offering a genuine smile. Rebecca nodded, her eyes taking in the transformed ballroom. It's strange being back here, so many memories. Not all good ones, Maya acknowledged. No, Rebecca admitted, her gaze finally landing on Maya's beige dress. Her expression shifted with recognition. That dress, now I understand why you chose it. It reminds me where I started, Maya replied simply. Rebecca's perfectly manicured fingers twisted nervously. My father told me everything last week, about your mother, about who you really are. She paused, struggling to find the right words. It's still hard to process that we're sisters, half-sisters. It changes things, Maya agreed quietly. It explains things, Rebecca corrected. I've been thinking about that night, about how cruelly we treated you. I've been wondering if subconsciously I sensed something, some resemblance that threatened me. Before Maya could respond, the event coordinator signaled that it was time for her address. She excused herself and made her way to the small stage at the front of the room, where James waited with a proud smile. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, please welcome the CEO of Davenport Communications, Maya Wilson. Applause filled the room as Maya took the podium, surveying the audience with quiet confidence. So many of these faces had witnessed her humiliation years ago, yet here they were, hanging on her every word. Thank you all for joining us tonight, she began. A decade ago, in this very room, I learned a painful but valuable lesson about perception and reality. I was judged not for my capabilities or character, but for my appearance and background. A hush fell over the crowd as they realized the significance of the venue and her dress. Today, Davenport Communications stands for something different. We believe talent deserves opportunity regardless of packaging. That's why I'm proud to announce the launch of our Future Media Leaders program, providing full scholarships and mentorship to 100 students from underserved communities each year. The remainder of her speech outlined the company's renewed vision, emphasizing integrity, innovation, and inclusion. When she concluded, the audience responded with a standing ovation. As Maya stepped away from the podium, William approached, visibly moved. I never properly apologized for how we treated you that night, he said, his voice barely audible above the applause. Some things don't need forgiveness, Mr. Davenport, Maya replied softly. Just course correction. Rebecca, who had been watching from a distance, slowly made her way toward them. She hesitated briefly before commenting, That dress, now I understand why you chose it. It's not about the dress, Rebecca, Maya responded with a gentle smile. It never was. It's about who's inside it. As the evening progressed, Maya slipped away from the main celebration, finding a quiet moment in a small side room that had once been a storage closet, possibly the very one William had mockingly suggested she belonged in during that fateful night. James found her there, 2 champagne flutes in hand. To the most remarkable career trajectory I've ever witnessed, he toasted, handing her a glass. Was it worth the 10-year wait? Maya accepted the hotter champagne, considering his question carefully. Through the open door, she could see the transformed ballroom, once a temple to excess, now repurposed as a center for cultivating young talent from diverse backgrounds. She watched William and Rebecca engaging with scholarship recipients, genuine interest replacing their former condescension. You know, James, she said thoughtfully, some people wear revenge like a designer label, showy but ultimately empty. I prefer to transform it into something that truly suits me, purpose. James clinked his glass against hers. To purpose, then. Maya nodded, taking a final look at the beige dress that had once symbolized her greatest humiliation and now represented her greatest triumph. To purpose, she echoed, and to the unexpected journeys that lead us to it.